And welcome to episode 6 of What's the Point? The intersection of faith and life. I'm your host, John Muth, and joining me, as always, is my extraordinary co-host,
Trey Fall.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. What's new? What have you been doing with yourself?
Oh, not a lot. I started reading the Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, that's cool.
I've never actually read all of the books all the way through, so picked them up with my Amazon points.
Ooh.
And
That's
read
exciting.
I read The Magician's. I know. I read The Magician's Nephew and just started Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe this morning.
Oh, so you're reading them in the number order, not like the
Mm-hmm.
order, because there's a hotly debated order of the book, the way you're supposed to read them. It's
Yeah,
not
I'm just
hotly
going in order.
There are forums online from 1998. People arguing the order to read Chronicles of Narnia.
Interesting. Well, when I opened Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe today, you know how like authors will write a note to who it's for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lewis said
Trey?
he wrote it for his granddaughter Lucy, and he said by the time this is published and bound and sent out for sale, you'll be too old to appreciate fairy tales, but one day you'll be old enough when you want to read fairy tales again. So I guess I'm to that point in my life now where I want to read fairy tales again because I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's a good deal.
Yeah.
So we are interviewing someone awesome today, right?
Yep.
Who are we interviewing? What are we going to talk about?
Her name is Jolie House, which is a very appropriate last name considering we are going to talk about hospitality today and how to use your hospitality.
Yeah.
And how to use your house.
Copyright. Just copyrighted it. It's on the internet.
We're going to talk about how to be kind and how to be hospitable and use your house to help people find and follow Jesus, which is what we're all about at Cross Pointe Church.
Awesome. Well, unless you want to talk more about Chronicles of Narnia, which we don't.
Maybe we'll devote another episode to that.
Yeah, sure. That sounds exciting. Speaking of which, if you have anything that you'd like us to discuss on the show, write into us, info@crosspointma.org. Or if there are any like secret jokes you want me to tell, anything you want me to say to Trey that could be fun. Of course, I'll filter it, but I don't have much of a filter. Let's face it. I'll say it. Email it to me, info@crosspointma.org. Could be fun. Just email me, please.
He just wants attention.
What? All right.
Moving on.
Let's talk to Jolie. You're not being very hospitable.
Sorry.
Let's, without any further ado, here's our interview with Jolie House. And we're back. We're here with Jolie House. Hi, Jolie.
Good morning.
How you doing,
Jolie?
Today? Good.
Why don't we start? We're going to have some specific questions to ask you in a little bit, but why don't you just tell us about yourself, your family, your career, your hobbies?
All right. I grew up in upstate New York, the youngest of 5 kids. Went to college in University of Utah. And then from there went to Boston to start a career in finance. And went to grad school there. Let's see, married my high school sweetheart after grad school, and
what's his name?
His name is Stan.
Oh, Stan, I know him.
Yeah, Stan House. He worked in Rhode Island, Connecticut area. I worked in Boston. We looked at the map and we found a point called Norton, Mansfield, and we moved in a little tiny apartment there. And that's where we found the church that we go to now. Used to be called Edgewood, now called Cross Pointe. And that is where like our forever family has been for the last 20 years.
How long have you been going to church for 20 years?
We found the church in 2001 after 9/11 happened. We were both a little bit shaken up from that. He was actually working outside of Manhattan that day, and I was working in a high rise in Boston that got cleared out that day. So we were both pretty shaken when 9/11 happened. And I think it was the following Sunday, we drove on 140 towards Mansfield, and outside of the church was a sign that said 9/11 Memorial here. So we're like, let's pop in that church. We didn't have a church home. Neither of us were baptized Christians. So we went in there that day and met people the very first day, and we've been going there for almost 20 years. So,
wow.
And yeah, both baptized as adults. Him maybe a year later, and me a couple years after that. So that's where we started our family, and that's really I have 3 kids, boy, girl, boy, and that is their family really, because we don't have family here. Our family's in New York and Utah, and both of them we see like once a year. So
yeah,
that is my kids' family.
Now, Jolie, today we're talking about hospitality, and you're one of the most hospitable people I've met. In fact, I think when we first came out, we went to Shannon Leslie's house for like a sit down kind of interview, get to know things. But after we had accepted the job at Pointe, your house was the first one that we got invited to, and and quickly realizing why your house and why specifically not your house, but why you were chosen to host people. Have you always, because you're just really good at it, have you always enjoyed hosting people?
Experience.
That's funny.
Have you always enjoyed that?
Yeah, I guess I do. It's funny because when you say I'm a good host, most people might think of like somebody who really knows what they're doing and can like time things and all that. It's not that. It's I think it's just the willingness to have people in my home and open it up and make people feel welcome, because everything is usually pretty informal. I think I like to create nice spaces is what I like to do. So naturally bringing people into them is fits. And personality wise, I think Stan and I try to just keep it low key. So hosting is I think what we're meant to do.
What brings you the most joy in that?
Bringing people together, really, especially when it's for the purpose of serving the Lord. Our last house that we lived in was a great house. We built it, but it had a small basement, maybe 400 square feet, half basement that we finished. And we host a life group every Wednesday. We started it over 12 years ago, and it's grown. And it changes all the time. It's always different people. It's not the same people. But sometimes there's a lot of kids that come with that. We used to put them in our playroom in our basement, and it wasn't working anymore, accommodation-wise. And we actually said, we need to find a house that we don't have to cap our Bible study based on how many heads we can hold, especially when it comes to kids. So we looked for a house for 4 years. And every time I would talk to a realtor or something, I would say, we need a hosting house. We need a hosting house. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, and then we found one, and it wasn't for sale. It was through a friend of a friend. And she heard that I needed a hosting house, and she said, we have the house for you, but it won't be for sale for like a year. And I said, we'll wait. We'll wait for it. And the basement is a whole nother house in itself. So the kids have a kitchenette and they have space, and it works perfectly. We built the basement and everything that we have to accommodate really gatherings for God. So it's what we were set up to do.
I love that. Usually when people are house shopping, you're like, okay, I want a backyard and a pool, and I want to have some privacy away from my neighbors. You don't hear a lot of times, I'm going to look for a house where I can just throw parties and host people all the time.
And the funny part is when you tell a realtor, it's not, not a party. We're not looking for a house. It's not just a party house. It's like, well, we have this Bible study every Wednesday. They're like, what? Like what? Like what? You need a hosting house for a Bible study? And I'm like, well, we have it it's not like it's once a year, we're not having a party twice a year. Every Wednesday we have between, before Corona, we have between 12 and 30, 40 people at the house. It has to be comfortable, you know? So it's funny to see their face expressions when you're searching for that purpose.
Yeah, that I can imagine some of their responses, like, what? You do what? You know. Well, hey, many might not know this, because I didn't. I was in college and studied the Bible, and I didn't know this till recently, or think about it till recently. But hospitality is a spiritual gift, spiritual discipline. It's something you read about in the Bible. In fact, I want to read a passage for everyone, and then Jolie, I'd like you to reflect on it, on, you know, hospitality as a spiritual discipline. It's from 1 Peter 4, verse 7.
We lost Jolie's video.
Uh-oh.
We lost her.
Oh.
Jolie's been replaced by a robot called 5G3KNY.
I don't know why that happened. All right.
So here's a scripture I'd just like some of your thoughts on. 1 Peter 4, verse 7. It says, "The end of the world is coming soon. Therefore, be earnest and disciplined in your prayers. Most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins. Cheerfully share your home with those who need a meal or a place to stay. God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another." So if you would just take a couple minutes and kind of reflect on that, and how hospitality is important to sharing the gospel.
You could say it's cheerfully too, Trey, because people need chairs when they gather. It's cheerfully.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna hop on that.
We got plenty of chairs, John.
I hopped on it like a chair.
Yep.
All right, Jolie. You're up.
So to me, I think of that as you're given gifts, and how you choose to use them is a choice. So when we were able to purchase the house that we're in right now, that's not for me to hoard. That's not for me to say this is mine. It's to share, and it's to use. And I think that we're called to use our gifts to serve God. And for us, it happens to be a place for people to convene. I just lost my train of thought. I had something there. The end of all things is near. Therefore, you have to have these locations and these places, because I think for myself, the best way for me to spread the gospel is through relationships. I don't think I'm a good teacher. I'm not a good scholar. I don't know the Bible front to back, but I know how to connect with people. And so I can lead more by example, and through true relationships, real relationships. I really do care for people. I do want to know about them and see where they're coming from, and then see if I can help them see things in a different light. So I think, you know, a place, a home is a good place to do that. It shows that you're vulnerable enough to bring these people in. I mentioned our life group Bible study. That has changed so much over the 12 years as far as who attends. At one point, Stan and I are looking around the room, and we're like, oh boy, we have us and one other couple that are Christian, but the whole rest of the room are people that we met on the side of the football field or the lacrosse field. And, you know, we have to connect with all of these people and just show them God's grace. And it's brand new to a lot of people that are passing through here. So that's what I see in that scripture, is that this isn't really optional. This is a command. And so that's why we're doing it. And it's funny. Sometimes one of the questions was, I don't know if you were going to touch on or not, but we'll just go there now.
We're asking you all the questions. This is unscripted. I mean, what are you talking about?
Right.
We aren't prepared at all.
One of the questions was, what's the biggest challenge of hosting? For us, it's time. We both have our own businesses, and we have 3 kids that are in a lot of sports. So sometimes, like this last fall, there was not one day of the week where we could have our study, there wasn't a day that we were home. So we said, okay, do we put this on hold for another 3 months or something? And the answer is no. So the study started at my house without me. I arrived like 20 minutes late every week because I had to pick somebody up, and that's how it goes. I mean, it's not about me. It's not about us. It's about getting these people together to worship God, and you got to do what you got to do.
Was Stan present, or were you just having people in your house starting?
Yeah, he was present, but
Okay.
usually had to be somewhere 5 minutes later. So, but sometimes there has been times where neither of us are present, and it's just, you just open the doors and the people know what to do, and that's fine. I think there has been a study before where we were out of town, and it was held at our house without us.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Did you lose me again?
Yeah, but we're just gonna keep talking.
All right.
Yeah, we'll just keep
That's
going.
okay. We don't rely on the internet. The internet relies on us, or something like that. I don't know. Hey, Jolie, I have a question. You mentioned lacrosse and sports and stuff.
Yeah.
So how can people be hospitable outside of the house? What does that look like because it's not just about using your home. It's really, I mean, what I'm hearing you say, it's really about your mindset and how you use the gifts God has given you, like you said. So how does that look like when you're not at home and when you're outside your house?
I'll use an example. Stan coaches football pretty religiously and has for about 10 years. So there's a lot of teams and there's a lot of coaches and there's a lot of different ways to do things. But on his team, people know that things go a little bit differently. One of the biggest surprises to the other coaches, because in football you have the head coach and then you have about 5 other coaches that you select to work with you. Mm-hmm. The first thing that they are faced with is there's no swearing on Stan's team, either from coaches or players, and that is foreign to some people, believe it or not. Here I go again.
Oh, we can hear you. We can hear you. Don't worry about it.
All right. So it's I guess the sharing of the gospel starts right there, really. Mm-hmm. I remember last fall there was an issue on the sidelines amongst 2 fathers who were getting into it, and they were starting to fight about something, I don't know. And so I got up and I just went over and I said, listen, not on this team. We don't do this. What's the problem? And this kid is doing this to my kid, blah, blah, blah. So I yelled for Stan, we stopped the practice, which is like, you don't do that. And I said, we're going to solve this right now, because we don't have drama. We're just real people. And Stan has been known to pray with his team before a game. And so just showing them in any environment that you're different provokes a lot of conversation for us. I don't know if that's called hospitality, but that's how I feel like that, like when we're on a team or coaching a team, that's our team and this is how we run it. So kind of hospitality.
Yeah, it's almost an extension of your home and how you would expect people to live when they're in your home too.
Right.
But what's one of your favorite hospitality stories or a way you've really seen God move by hosting people or even just living the hospitable life?
It happens a lot. It really does, through the people that pass through. I guess the one biggest success story might be Miss Tiffany Foley, who was a neighbor of ours in our old neighborhood and is now a member at Pointe. She was just somebody we met in the cul-de-sac outside, and she just was so interested and so struggling at first with life and what was going on around her. And then just seeing her first attend our life group, then attend our church, then get baptized, and now just be a little soldier is like, she's doing way more than I can. And so I guess I see her as a big success.
Cool. And a lot of that started in your home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes we do a disservice to our friends when our first, faith conversation or our first invite is, hey, why don't you come to church with me?
Yeah.
And I think you can have, like what you're saying with Tiffany, you can have a bigger impact when you say, why don't you come to my home?
Yeah.
It's much more vulnerable, like you talked about. It's much more real, authentic. So that would be a big encouragement for anybody listening is, before you invite to church, maybe invite to your home, share a meal with them, get to know them, have a conversation. I think that is some powerful stuff and gospel oriented.
Yeah, I think when people, everyone's got kind of preconceived ideas about what Christians are like, and well, it's because there's a lot of Christians that are we're all different in a lot of ways, and in some ways negative. So people just have these things in their minds, and so yeah, like you said, inviting someone, hey, come to my church, might work for some. It definitely works for some. I mean, we see that. But to invite someone out of just your relationship, hey, come to my house, come have dinner, come have dessert, come play some games. That's a big deal. Like that can be a big deal, and it allows people to see like really who you are. I know Kristen and I, we always get a little, it's like, it's stressful sometimes hosting people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's like, it's just like one more thing, like Jolie, you said, it's just time. It's okay. We've got to get ready for this. It's just, we got to take the time to do this. But I would say every time we do have people over and they leave, we always say, and we're so glad we did that.
Yeah.
That was because it's like something that's draining, but it also fills you up at the same time. I don't know how to explain it, except when Trey's comes over, then it's just draining, only draining.
No respect on here.
People expect it. I've got to keep up this facade. I don't want anybody to think we're actually best friends.
Right. Hey, Jolie, when you have people to your house, this is something I really struggle with. So I'm excited to hear your feedback and advice on this. I can build relationships with people. I'm pretty good at that. The part that I struggle with is navigating the conversation to Jesus.
Yeah.
I have no problem having people into my home or going out for a meal with people. What I'm bad at is navigating that conversation to Jesus. What advice do you have? What things have you noticed that works? Like, do you have a conversation hook where you automatically navigate the conversation with? What do you got?
I'm afraid I have the wrong answer for you, Trey. I wish I could say that when I have a, lack of better words, non-Christian party at my house, say we're having a team party with mostly non-Christians type thing at the house. I wish I could say that every conversation was geared towards Jesus and navigating towards him. It doesn't always end up that way, but what I do try to do every time we get together with anybody is live by example, showing kindness. When somebody's talking about somebody else, kind of try to put that fire out, or say, let's give them a benefit of doubt, or just try to show in our actions more than preaching to them, because a lot of the people that we're dealing with are not ready for that just yet, or just subtle hints that we live our life a little bit different. I try to do things like show respect to my husband and treat my kids a certain way, so that they can see that there's a better way. So I don't think that I can always bring every conversation back to Jesus, especially when it's the first or second visit with some of these people.
Takes time.
Yep. But the people that are looking, I feel like, pick up on these cues. And then you hone in on them. Because if they're seeking, you'll know it. And then you grab a hold of them. And that's when you can get into the deeper conversations.
Yeah. People respond to authenticity. Well, actually, people know when you're being inauthentic. Let me say it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's key to just be yourself and not to be fake, which you don't do. You're not fake at all. And I love that. I think that I lost my train of thought. It's going around. It's contagious. Never mind. What was I going to say?
Yeah.
It's important.
you can also,
Thought provoking.
this isn't what you want on this video, but you can also have the opposite effect, Trey. If you're trying to preach to people who are trying to get to know you, you might scare them right off. Like you got to read some body language. Maybe you could study up on reading body language. You don't want them to think that you're above them or
right
that you see yourself above them. It's not like that at all.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of.
In some ways, what you're saying is hopefully a relief, as a relief for me and a relief for listeners as well, is that while you always want to be pointing to Jesus, you don't have to do that in conversation. You can do that with actions. So I think what you're suggesting is pulling some of that burden off, to just be real, be normal, and don't feel like you always have to be preaching and shoving Jesus down people's throats.
Yeah.
Right. But also be watching, because you can tell when someone is looking for something, or when you've done something that catches their attention, they'll bring it up. And that's another opportunity to say why you are the way you are. So I don't,
that's great.
Unfortunately, I don't feel like there's burden lifted, but it's just the approach is different, I guess. More sudden. Got to be smooth.
Well,
right? Smooth.
Well, and smooth and emotional intelligence, but it also, like, you can tell yourself, okay, that conversation didn't get to Jesus, but we talked about kindness and we talked about being a good spouse, and that's a step in the right direction. So maybe my next 3 conversations with that person, or my next 3 times they're in my home, well, maybe we'll gradually get closer to Jesus each time. Yep. And so when you look at it that way, that's how I think some of the burden is relieved, even though there's still that, that overarching goal.
So that's good. We are almost out of time, but I want to ask you one more question, Jolie.
Okay.
And we're not going to play a game and make fun of you like we did Shan last week. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. I like games.
Or no, that was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
The question is, how have you personally been impacted by someone's hospitality? Is there someone you can think of that impacted your life?
I think back to my first, we'll say 10 years of life at church, because it was new to me, and some of these older Christian ladies were new to me, and I just will always be impacted by them. But one thing in particular was, I remember that somebody had a ladies event, like a Christmas party type of
ladies night.
Yes, all the ladies at the church, they just throw an invite out to the whole group, so whoever wants to go. And I went with another person, and we show up, and it's like a busy street, this little tiny house, and cars on both sides of the road. And I'm like, wow, there must be something else going on in this area. It's so populated and whatever. Go inside, and this house has to be 900 square feet, and there was probably 40 women in there. No place to sit. We're all in the hallways. We're in whatever. There was like a Yankee swap. There was food. You couldn't even sit. There was literally nowhere to sit if you wanted to. And at first, I'm just like, oh my gosh, maybe there was a better place to do this or have this. And then they did some worship time where they were singing. And I will never be the same. It was the most powerful, beautiful party I'd ever been to. And I think it was that day where I was like, wow, I want to host.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that.
And you don't even have to have the big house or the fancy house, or it's 900 square feet, 40 women.
Honestly, they had nothing. They had one bathroom that was constantly in use, and they had one little corner living room that like could hold like 3 people, but it was like and it was winter, so you couldn't overflow outside, so people were just kind of hanging out and scooching by each other, and nobody cared. I mean, I felt judgmental, because I was like, really, is this how this is how the party's gonna be? And that was back when I was young too. I had no better place to host. I couldn't offer anything to host. But this woman couldn't have been more confident. This is my house, and we're having a party, and I'm so happy to have everybody. And
like you said, it's that mindset of this is something God gave me and I'm going to use it for him.
She was so thrilled that she could offer up her home for that party. And it was the best party I've ever been to.
That's awesome.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to have parties again soon, someday.
Yeah, we can have outdoor parties.
Well, we are, as a church, even though we haven't opened the building back up, we are pushing for home gatherings. And so if anything Jolie said has kind of struck a chord with you and you think, oh, I'd like to try that, great time to try that is on Sunday mornings at 11 or any night after 11. You can watch the service and host friends and neighbors, and you can begin practicing some hospitality in a real practical way.
Yeah, right on. Well, Jolie, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your heart today. And we just really appreciate you. And you're so hospitable by letting us interview you.
Thanks.
Hey, John,
and I thank you, Trey,
Jolie.
I guess.
No, that's all right.
I was just going to say there will be some resources linked with this podcast, a couple books on hospitality that I found really helpful. And so if you get a chance to check out some of those to anybody watching or listening.
Yeah, we linked some books the other day too. I don't know any readers out there, but there's one specifically called The Art of Neighboring that I read and really changed my perspective on a lot of things. It's a really great book. And I don't read a lot, so for Trey to say I recommend this book, you'd be like, okay, it's probably good. But for me to recommend a book, you gotta listen.
When John recommends a book, it has pictures.
Yeah. It does actually have some diagrams.
Probably comics.
Comic books.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that next week?
No.
Okay. Well, join us next time. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for watching or listening. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe. Leave us a review. That helps more people see this. And join us next time as we yet again attempt to answer the question, what's the point?
What's the point?
What's the point?